This is Phantom Electric Ghost, and we're live on the air with Rhonda Britten, and you're an Emmy Award-winning um, actress and author. And I want to thank you for being on the show. You're a master coach, and we're going to talk to you about your whole story. But I want to thank you for being a guest on the Phantom Electric Ghost podcast. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
So, one of the things I always ask any guest on the show before we get into your story is basically what motivates you and why do you do what you do?
Oh gosh. What motivates me and why do I do what I do? Well, oh wow, that's just such a big question. I believe in people. I believe in people. And you're going to hear my story in a minute, but if you really want to psychoanalyze me, I always say if a therapist wants to psychoanalyze me, why does Rhonda Britten do what she does? Because I am not okay with people living less than the life that their soul intended. And I think most of us, as I was for most of my life, battered down, stuck in, believe the lies of our fears. And once we can see through the illusion, once we can see who we really are, once we know how to break through, then we can actually live a life that is meant for us. And I do believe that people have a destiny, and I believe it's my job to help them fulfill that destiny, whatever that is. And you may not know it, you may not know it right now. You might not, but there is something that's calling you. Otherwise, you wouldn't be watching right now.
Yeah, it's definitely good because you've got a lot of life experience. Just to give our audience a background, like you've been a repeated guest on Oprah, and
Mm-hmm.
that's a big issue. Big, you're an Emmy award winning um, title. You've got that. So if you're going to back into your story, maybe you want to start at the beginning, or do you want to start wherever
No,
you
I'll
think?
start at I'll start at the beginning because I think that's the most important thing, and I think that's what drives me. Again, if a psychiatrist wanted to evaluate me, after you hear my story, you'll be like, "Oh, that's why she does it," right? So, I believe that the worst day of our lives are the seeds for our destiny. That I think something that happens on the worst day is seed for our future fodder for us to become who we're meant to be. And my worst day was when I was 14 years old. I grew up in a little tiny town in Upper Michigan, 365 inches of snow a year, 2 restaurants, fancy Douglas House hotel buffet, and Big Boy. We didn't have any fast foods. We didn't have anything like that. Just a little tiny town. And it was Father's Day, and my parents were in the middle of a divorce. So my father was coming over to take us out to brunch, me, my mom, and my 2 sisters. So there's 5 of us. And that's a big deal. So my dad comes in back door. My mom and I are in her bedroom. She's putting on her blue eyeshadow and her rose-colored lipstick and boofing up her bouffant hairdo. And my dad comes in, come on, let's go, because that's what dads do. And my 2 sisters are fighting it out in our one little bathroom, where our house is about 750 square feet, 800 square feet. And my mom and I start walking out towards my dad to go to the car. My sister's still fighting it out in the bathroom. And as my dad walks out, he realizes it started to rain. And so he looks at my mother and me and says, I got to go get my coat from the car. Now, this coat is a tan Naugahyde leisure suit coat, which in the day was a big hot deal. Like my dad looked really cool in that jacket. And as me and my mom walk out, my dad is opening his trunk. And as he puts his hand in the trunk, I notice he's not pulling out a tan Naugahyde leisure suit coat. He's pulling out a gun. And he starts screaming at my mother, you made me do this, you made me do this. And he fires. And I start screaming, Dad, what are you doing? Stop, Dad, what are you doing? And he cocks the gun again. He points it at me. I absolutely believe I'm next. And he blinks, I blink, he blinks, I blink, he blinks, I blink. And my mother, literally her last breath, sees that gun in my face and screams out, no, don't. And my father, realizing my mother is still alive, turns the gun that was pointed at me, now at my mother, and shoots her a second time. And this second bullet goes through my mother's abdomen, out her back, lands in the car horn. And for the next 20 minutes, all I heard was, and then my father cocks the gun for a third time, puts the gun barrel to his head, and fires. So in a matter of 2 minutes, I was the sole witness of watching my father murder my mother and commit suicide in front of me. Now, I don't know how other people respond, but this is how I responded. I blamed myself. I did nothing heroic, right? I didn't jump in front of my mother. I didn't kick in my father's shin. I didn't grab the gun. I did nothing heroic. And so if you don't save your mother from being murdered, you don't get to be happy. It's off the table. You just don't get that. And so for the next 20 years, I lived two lives. On the outside, I was still a straight A student, got a full ride to college. I'm fine. I'm fine. I mean, I just acted like I was fine. And then on the inside, I had a lot of self-hatred, low self-worth, lack of confidence. And those two worlds kept colliding. And how did I manage living in those two worlds? Well, I started drinking.
Mm.
And I eventually became an alcoholic. And I got 3 DUIs. And I ended up going to jail for a little bit because of those DUIs. And I tried to kill myself 3 times. And it was that third suicide attempt that I realized I'm not very good at killing myself, not skilled at it, and I got to find another way. And now, mind you, those 20 years that I was drinking, getting DUIs, and trying to kill myself, I was also going to therapy and going to workshops and reading books. I was doing everything that I could think of, inner child work, rebirthing, shaman work, you name it, I've done it. And so I couldn't reconcile with all this work I was doing on myself and my past. And I just believed at this point that my past would dictate my life. Like there was no getting away from my past. There was no getting away. And I was going to be that person the rest of my life. And at that third suicide attempt, when I realized I wasn't good at killing myself, and by the way, when you try to kill yourself 3 times, you do go in a psychiatric ward for evaluation, and they deemed me not crazy, let me go home to my little studio apartment. And I remember getting home and leaning my back against the wall. And you know how you slide down the wall? And I slid down the wall and I was sitting on the floor. And I just said, I have to start over. I have to just start over, completely start over. And so I thought to myself, what do they do in kindergarten? Well, they get a calendar with gold stars. So I actually went out, got a calendar with gold stars. And anything I did, even just a tiny bit good, I gave myself a gold star. And I'm talking not brave, amazing things. I'm talking about getting angry and not breaking anything. Like that's the level I was at.
Like little
And
wins,
little
just like
tiny, little small, tiny wins, right? Like drank and didn't get drunk, right? Just little tiny things. And at the end of 30 days, I had a calendar full of stars, and I knew that there was hope for me. I knew that I was worth saving. And, that was really the beginning, even though I'd been doing a lot of self-help and personal development and spiritual work and, therapy, et cetera, for the last 20 years. My recognition that I had to start over, I think, was the beginning of a level of humility and a surrender that allowed me to step into the path that I'm on today. Of course, it would take many years before I became who I am today, per se, doing what I do today. But that was the beginning of realizing I have to figure out another way.
kind of like that looking glass self, and you had to like find the path for you. I mean, you had all the training and the help from the therapist you went to, but it wasn't resonating until you actually kind of hit that, I guess, like crucible moment where you saw it. You saw something. It has
Yes,
to click. Like for anybody, it has to click.
that's
Like
right.
even if it doesn't click for you, it kind of goes just like vaporware. It doesn't work.
It is so true, so true. And also, I think, therapy, personal development, shaman work, everything I did, while I loved it in the moment, like I loved it. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing, right? But I didn't know how to apply what I learned to my everyday life, right?
Hmm.
So I couldn't take the therapy experience and turn it into my daily life. Like it just wasn't therapy that I would talk about it, but it didn't change anything out there.
Yeah.
And so when I had that crucible moment, as you call it, I recognized, like, even getting the gold stars in the calendar, that was me doing something, right?
And
That was
proactive.
me, right, trying to, yeah, do something for myself, and have a different frame of mind and really get to that place of surrender. So, yeah, I think a lot of people get a lot of, they read a lot of books and they go to workshops and they do a lot of things for themselves, which again, yay, right? Like, yay. And I think many people are like me, that they can't cross the bridge over to, like, this isn't working in my life, my actual life when I go to work
Yeah.
or in my
Is it too
actual
cookie?
relationships.
Is it too cookie cutter? Because sometimes there's like if you don't have individual, like somebody actually listening to your story and not giving you like an overall like idea of or process. Like if that process is more catered to you and it requires like a back and forth individual one-on-one to actually determine like is what is your exact situation as an individual. and then
I
figure
think,
out
yeah.
what's going to apply because maybe the group apply doesn't work
Yeah, I
for
think the
people that
group
need
and I think, you're correct on that. I think there's a big difference between group and individual. And, you know, I think one of the things for me and why I do what I do the way I do it is I recognized that there was a big gap between spiritual foundation, the spiritual, spiritual principles that I want to live by, the philosophical things I want to live by versus human reality. And nobody told me how to bridge those gaps.
the bridge.
Right. So,
Yeah,
why is the old saying goes, why are spiritual people poor? Right. Like, right. And it's
or
like,
starving
right,
artists.
right. Starving artists, right? Like that's the whole, that's right. That's the,
Ethos.
ethos. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So that's the whole thing. It's like, oh, you got to be broke to be creative. And that's not true, but that's what we're taught. And so I remember when I was going through my transformation, and I had obviously a few more things happen to me, but going through that transformation, I got very practical in my to-dos and in my actions. And so I started filtering everything through that practical application of how does this impact my life? Every single thing I did. And that's what I do with my clients. So when a client comes to me or a students come to my workshop, I might give them language to use. I might role play them, right? I might put them through a visceral exercise, have them work with bricks or blocks, or, have them draw in order to unleash something that hasn't been able to be unleashed the talking way, right? So
Mhm.
I think that some people, they just need it differently. And many people, many therapists, many coaches, I mean, their heart is in the right place. For God's sake, their heart is in the right place, but they may not have the level of skill that somebody needs in order to get them where they need to go.
We kind of got to bring, the individual out and really hear their story. Like you said, the bridging the gap. Like, here's a bunch of tools, here's a bunch of processes, but what's actually going to work for that person? You probably need to really have good listening skills or watching skills to see how does this person process their
That's
trauma.
right.
How
That's
do
right.
they actually process things? Like this
That's
to
right.
listen how they talk and then see, not just take your 10-step or 20-step thing and try to apply it, but say, hey, based on this person, maybe step 7, maybe step 2, and then there's something other steps I didn't document and I need to listen and
That's
then
right.
kind of intuitively figure out based on what I know how to help them.
Well, it's like, I've been doing this for 30 years. So I have a whole big case of tools, right? Like I have
Mhm,
lots and lots of tools. And when somebody's sharing something with me, whether it's in a class or privately or in an intensive with me, I apply those 30 years to that person and all the skills and tools I have. And so I just find that I hear people differently than most other people,
mhm,
because I think I'm hearing for something that is beyond the actual problem. Because, I always tell my coaches when I train my coaches that you're working on two different levels. One, you're working on the problem, right? So somebody wants to increase their monies. Great. That's the problem. Or I want to find love. That's the problem. Or I want to save marriage. That's the problem. Or I want to lose weight. That's the problem. And that's why people come, right? They come because they have a problem. So that's one road you take a client through, right? But the other road that you're really doing, psst, don't tell anybody, is building a new foundation underneath them while you're moving them forward in their goal, right? Moving them forward in their dream. I'm actually building another way for them to literally see the world. So, what I do with people is I have them literally change their perception of the world. So they see a completely different world. So, the boss might still be yelling at them, but they don't see it that way anymore. They don't even see it that way.
you don't get triggered
Right.
by it, maybe.
They don't get triggered anymore, because once you understand how fear works in your own personal life, if you understand what I call the wheel of fear, then the things that trigger you, things that bother you, things that you think are insulting, things that you get mad about, right? Um, they don't do that anymore in the way that they used to, because you're not at the effect, right? You're not the effect of the external. You're being led by the internal. So, yes, I want to solve my client's problem, but more importantly, I want to build a lifelong foundation. So no matter what their problem is in the future, they know how to deal with it.
And you put this into your best-selling book, The Fearless Living, but you also have Fearless Living life coach certification program
Yep.
and like a training. So you kind of taken that bestseller and kind of woven it into a whole program.
That's right. So I have the Fearless Living Transformation Program for anybody who wants to get fearless. So that's Fearless Living Transformation Program. That's for anybody. And then I have the Life Coach Certification Program, which you mentioned, which is, well, now I want to take the work of fearless living and become a coach, right? I want to coach people on this work. And of course, anything else, you might be a nutritionist, or you might have gone through a different certification program, a health coach. So, how do you take the tools of fearless living and apply them into your business? So we have ministers go through the life coach certification program. We have executives, we have lawyers, we have moms they want to be better parents, and they know going through the life coach certification program will help them. And then we have coaches or therapists, that have been working for decades that want to just gain more skills and more tools and learn my way of working with people.
It's interesting how like as a creative person, you found a way to like you wrote the book, but then you wanted to actually turn it into something like a living, breathing process, not just a
Well,
book.
well, I actually wrote the book. So the first thing I did when I first started working with clients is I worked one-on-one. And
Mhm.
that's all I did. I only worked one-on-one. I never thought I would do groups. I never thought I'd write a book. I was just doing one-on-one. And
Oh,
then one of my clients, who was one of my one-on-one clients, said to me, "Oh, will you come and teach this to my team?" And I'm like, "No, I don't do that. I don't teach workshops. I don't do that. I'll teach you to do it." So I really tried for like a month to get her to learn how to do what I was doing. And it was a failure. So I was like, "Okay, fine, I'll go." And I was an actress when I was younger. So when shockingly to me, because I really didn't think I was going to like it, I didn't want to do it. So I go to this little office, and there's 4 people in front of me, and I have a whiteboard, and I start teaching/coaching what I was sharing with my client who brought me there. And I just lit on fire. It was so much fun. And so from there, I started doing workshops every month at my house. And then I went to speaking events. And so I was speaking, training, teaching, coaching for 5 years, on a daily basis, every day. I was speaking 10, 20 times a month. I'd speak anywhere. You have 20 people, I'm there. I don't care if it's your living room. I don't care if it's the Optimist Club. I don't care if it's community college. I'm there. So I would go literally in Southern California, all the way from like Santa Barbara all the way to San Diego. And then it was at the speaking events and at my workshops that people kept saying to me, "I want, something to give to my cousin in Pittsburgh, and I want to send something. Do you have a book? Do you have a book?"
oh,
And I'd be like, "A
yeah.
book? What?"
Oh,
So
coaches need a book.
right. So it was, my work with clients is living, breathing, as you gather, very creative. And so then I had to really process, what do I do step by step, and turn that into a book so that people could follow me step by step. And so Fearless Living is Fearless Living Transformation Program in a book, right? So you can listen to the audio, you can read it, etc. And or you can take the online course, Fearless Living Transformation Program. So whichever way you do it, or you can work with a coach and they will take you through the process. And then you'll be able to get your own Wheel of Fear and Wheel of Freedom, and figure out how you work.
So where on your timeline were you doing like the NBC show starting over and the
Yeah.
other 600 episodes of reality TV? Was it in this same time period?
So here I am. So I started coaching when I was 35. 40, I started writing my book, and it was published, or 39, I started writing my book, and it was published when I was 40. And it came out in April. And one of the things that my book sold in like 16 countries, 16 languages. So they actually brought me to do tours, book tours. Not only did I do like 35 cities in America, I also went to the United Kingdom, and I also went to Australia. So when I was in the United Kingdom in London, my publicist, they take you around to all the places and the book signings, right? And she's like, "Rhonda," and I'm like, "Yes." She goes, "There's a company here that is doing a reality show." Now, there was no such thing as reality shows for coaches at this time. There was no such
Mhm.
thing, right? And so she's like, "We want to create a reality show for coach or therapists to change lives, and they've been auditioning people for 9 months, and they can't find anybody. They've been auditioning in America and here, and they're just about to shut it down. Would you like? They want to know if you'd like to audition." And I was like, "Why, yes, I would. Why, yes, I would." So I auditioned. I think I was in United Kingdom at the end of May. And by the end of June, I was living in London, shooting the very first television show of its kind, a reality show changing lives. in the United Kingdom, and it aired in Israel and Australia. It aired more countries, but we filmed it, and I did 2 seasons of that. And so then after I got back from London after the second season, Starting Over, which was the first show in America that had life coaches changing lives, basically called me up and said, "Hey, we see you what you're doing over at the United Kingdom. Come on over and audition."
Do that one. Yeah, do it for
Yeah, right. Well,
US
I'd actually was the only one in the whole world who'd done it.
Well,
So
so
right,
that's
so
what he wanted you.
yeah, I was it, right? I was it. So I go into the executive producer meeting, and they're like, "Well, the show's going to go like this. The show's going to go like this, and we want the show like this." And I looked at him, I said, "Yeah, that's not how it's going to go down. I've been doing it for 2 years. Let me tell you what's going to happen." And I did. I so did, because I didn't want to placate them or pretend that I didn't know what I knew, right? I wanted to be fully
Right.
me with all my skills and all my experience going in. So I knew if they were brave, they'd hire me. But if they weren't brave and wanted to be in control, they wouldn't
Yeah,
hire me. But they did
that's
hire
cool.
me.
But a lot of times, like, people in the creative people can fall into that trap. Like, you can fall into a trap where you get a producer that wants you to sound like everybody else but yourself, right? And you know who you are. And so, like, if you know what you wanna do, then you won't kinda stray from your vision. But if
Yeah.
you get a little weak in your vision, then you let the other person kinda take over.
Well, this is what happens, Phantom, is, I see this all the time on shows that tried to duplicate Starting Over or the show in the United Kingdom, Help Me Rhonda. And then I went on to do Celebrity Fit Club as well and work with celebrities on TV here in America. But what I see over and over again is, and I understand this, when you have never been on TV before and you do not have experience with producers, they are going to tell you what to do because they're trying to solve a TV issue through their lens. They're not looking through your lens, right? So during Starting Over, during Help Me Rhonda, well, I'll give you a perfect example. In Help Me Rhonda, so we got a client to, my first client in London, first TV show, right? They sit me down and they go, "What are you going to do with the person? We have 30 days to change their life." I mean, I'll never forget their faces. I said, "Okay, well, for this first time, I'm going to do A, B, C, D." Right. And they go, "Okay, then what are you going to do?" And I go, "Well, I don't know. I haven't met him yet." And they're like, "What?" Right. Because they want to plan a whole month. And it's like, that's not how I work. I know what I want to do based on what I've seen. Okay. So I know the first series of things, but then in that session, I'm going to discover what the next session's about. So,
Mm.
I was brave enough and bold enough and successful enough to have that courage, but most people are intimidated. And I always tell everybody that is a life coach or a therapist, I go, "Please don't go and audition for a coach program or a therapist. Don't do it until you talk to me, because I got to tell you what to do, because you're gonna collapse," right?
Yeah.
Because the people are so like, "Well, we have to know." Just like
Oh,
in
yeah, they
London,
wanna storyboard it out like a
they want
director,
to board all 4
film
weeks,
director. Yeah,
right? That would
a
make their life so much easier, right?
director. Well, they wanna know, like, the beginning, the end, and in the middle,
That's
they
right.
wanna know
That's
the whole
right.
thing. But
That's
if
right.
it's
And
like
I'm
a
like,
human being's story, like, you don't know it until you start talking to 'em. So
"That's
how would
right."
you know it? You can
That's
make an assumption it's gonna be ABC, but it's like, everybody's different, and so if they want it to be cookie cutter, but that wasn't what you were trying to do. You were trying to actually have a realistic
Well,
experience.
you know what I'd say, Phantom? I'd say, "I'm not here playing a life coach. I actually have to change their life.
Yeah, you're
Like,
doing
I'm
it.
not
You're
here
not
to
trying to
play
play it.
act."
You're
And
like
and a lot
playing
of
the
the
doctor on Emergency.
Yeah, yeah, well, a lot of the life coaching shows or coaching or consulting shows, even Tony Robbins, and I can't remember the other guy's name, very famous person, in the business world. He I think his show lasted 3 episodes or 6 episodes because they were literally scripting it because he didn't actually know how to change somebody's life. So he was the talent, right? And he was going in with the script, and it just died on the vine, right?
It
Because the
seems like
people
an infomercial. It doesn't
right,
seem
well,
kinda canned. If
right,
it's canned, it's
because the people he was working with knew that he wasn't changing their lives, right? They were told what to say because again, it was just a play. It was like a
Playhouse
drama.
90. Playhouse 90. It's like a soap opera. But, yeah, well, if that's the problem with when you get scripted and the people wanna know, because like, yeah, I understand there's a business reason why somebody wants to know,
Yes.
but, like, if you're trying to be authentic and you're trying to actually execute what you really do, right?
Yeah,
You don't
really
want to
change their
fake.
lives.
Yeah, you don't want to fake. You want, it's like, this has got to be, this got to
That's right.
really come from my experience, not from
Yes,
what you think the experience should be. And I'm sure there's a lot of
that's right.
directors that have an idea what they think it should be because they're directors and they have their vision. And it's probably this battle between the director and a person like yourself is like, well, I want to keep it authentic. Well, I want it to look like this. Like,
Well, this
how do you balance that?
well, this is you're saying something perfect. So in Celebrity Fit Club, so I'd already done Help Me Rhonda for 2 seasons in the United Kingdom, and then I did all 3 seasons on Starting Over. And so now we're at like 500 and some episodes, right? And plus I've done every major TV show in Australia and United Kingdom and America, right? And now Celebrity Fit Club calls me out of the blue and they go, "Hey, we want you to do what you did on Starting Over." Now they had gone through 3 other people already. I think it was 3, maybe it was 2. No, I think it was 3. 3 other people already. And so I go to the set, the first season, I'm there, and the first episode. So we're filming the very first episode, and I walk out to meet I can't remember if there were 6 or 8 celebrities. I think it was 8 celebrities, but I might be off there. So I walk out to meet the celebrities, and to my right, there's like 20 people standing around watching. Producers, camera people, audio, just anybody, people walking around. And I am like, what? Because one of the things that I did in every TV show is I was the only person that could talk to my people. Like nobody else can be in the room. Because if you want me to get them crying and you want really great TV, I got to do really great things, right? And you can't be sitting me, can't have 25 people staring at me. So after that introduction, right after I did that first scene, I immediately went into the executive producer's trailer and said, "I need a closed set." And he's looking at me because he'd been already doing a bunch of seasons. But again, remember, he's still looking for somebody who can do it because he doesn't realize the problem is maybe not the people who were before me that were trying to change their lives. It's the way they set up the whole system.
Yeah,
So I
it's
said
not
to
too
him,
impersonal maybe.
yeah, I
It's
said, I need a closed set. And he literally looked at me like, "You're crazy." And I'm like, "I need a closed set. You want me to change these lives? I need a closed set. Nobody can be on there except the 2 camera crew or 4 camera crews, how many, audio person, right? Whatever I need to get the shot, I'll get you the shot. But all these other people got to go." And it took me a couple episodes for them to really understand what I needed. And then when they gave me what I needed, we made great TV. And so that's the hard part. If you're, "Hey, come and audition for the show." If you don't know that you can tell an executive producer, "I need a closed set," you're not going to. And then you're going to feel like you can't change their life. It's just a whole
well, it seems like
spiral.
you're living like your fearless living, like, ethos because a lot of people are very scared to speak their mind. As a producer, I work with people, and a lot of times they'll look to the producer to kinda direct, and I kinda say, "No, I want to hear, like, your demo. I wanna hear your I don't want you trying to please me. I wanna hear what you're doing. I don't want you to try to sound like what I've done on 10 other people's projects. I wanna make what you sound like sound uniquely you, but better." And a lot of people don't do that. They wanna hear they want you to clone what you did for somebody else. So
Yes.
you run into this cookie cutter thing, and everything's kinda like what you're saying, you got this open set, all these people, and it's like, how are you gonna get a personal experience if everybody's running around and, like, you don't have an intimate setting versus, like, somebody
That's right.
being in a box
That's
and
right.
actually just being able to do it and be themselves. It's like, you
That's
can't
right.
be vulnerable if you feel as everybody's watching.
Well, it's also, you're bringing up such great points because, I think so many of us, especially when, I started out, um, who knows? I probably would have been cookie cutter too. And I think a lot of people are looking for cookie cutter in the beginning because they're looking for a guaranteed successful, you know, but what you discover after you've been whatever business you've been in for a while, whatever that looks like, and especially with AI now, it's going to be more and more crucial for you to be you, because your
Mhm.
essence has a vibration, and that essence, that vibration is what's going to attract and repel. And you want to be fully you. That's the only way you're going to be perfectly satisfied, and that's the way you're only going to be happy. That's the only way you're going to truly attract your tribe. That's the way you're only going to have your own voice. But that is not easy to do. It is not like, oh, I'm just going to be myself. Being yourself is not
Yeah,
easy.
super hard. No,
Yeah.
it's one of the
Well,
hardest things to be vulnerable because a lot of people are taught to have the mask on, taught to have like, shape shifty, like you have that stage self, right?
yeah.
Versus the stage self that you do as an actor, right? The stage self
Yes,
you do in anything you do. Like you have the stage self that you're at work and you
that's right.
present to your boss. It's not how you present to your kids or your wife. It's probably totally different, right? It's like, so you have to learn how do you actually be more
Integrate.
of you. And it's a
Integrate.
confidence, yeah, it's a confidence thing. It's like the fearless living. I really get that because in order to be like you have your secret sauce, which is your individualism, is you have to kind of lean into that. And the world kind of wants you to this, be part of the tribe and not be on the outside of it or on the edge of it. So you're always working against that because they don't, people don't want to see that unique thing because the first thing they used to do when they see it, they usually reject it, until it becomes cool, but it's not cool off the bat. It's
Well,
usually not cool off the bat.
it's also because you're different, because you're being you. It's also in everybody's face how they're not being themselves. Right? So if you don't rein yourself in, then I don't have a right to rein myself in, and then I've been living a false life. So you got to rein yourself in to validate my life.
Make everybody happy.
So, I'm sorry?
Make everybody else happy.
Well, yeah, and that's how we're trained, right? So to be yourself, as E.E. Cummings says, to be yourself the fight that you will be fighting the rest of your life, because, you know, I talk about integration. You must be integrated, your body, mind, spirit, heart, right? Must be all integrated. And I think the highest compliment I ever receive is when people meet me at an event or book signing or something, and they go, "Oh my God, you're just the same in person as you are on TV." I go, "Yeah, because I'm the same person. I'm the
Just
same
the stage
person.
self.
I'm taking myself everywhere." But that wasn't like me just going, "I'm myself." It, I had to also build the skill, because speaking up is a skill. And I
Mhm.
think and I think people think like, "Oh, I'm not speaking up. I guess I'm not supposed to." No, that's a skill. Confidence is a skill. It's not just some people are confident, some people aren't. It's a skill.
You gotta
And so
practice, right?
that's right. And so anything that you want to start exhibiting more of yourself, whether it's selling your art, whether it's, having a podcast, whether it's doing whatever it is you want, it is a skill in order to speak about it, in order to share it with people. All those things are skills. So when you start seeing it through a lens of skill, then it's like, oh, learning to play the guitar, I got to practice 50 minutes a day. Well, if speaking up is a skill, I guess I'll start speaking up. You know?
Well, you need your 10,000 hours. Like every athlete and musician and artist has gotten like their brushstrokes, they got it down because they did it. And it's the same thing what people don't realize, like, well, they see the athlete doing the three-point shot with hours and hours of that. For you to get confident in yourself, you have to find a way to practice that
Well,
in your
I'll
life.
give you a funny story. When I was in London doing the show Help Me Rhonda, one of my clients couldn't speak up, right? That was part of his thing, and he wanted to be a singer. He wanted to be a singer, okay?
Mhm.
And he had a difficult time speaking up. So because you're on TV, I get to do a lot of cool things, and so I had the waiter had glasses on with a camera in it, and I told my client, so I took him to lunch, and then I said, "Oh, return your food," because the guy was part of the thing. The waiter brought the wrong food. And so I said, "Oh, is that what you ordered?" He's like, "No." I go, "Well, go ahead and return it." He's like, "Oh, no, I'm fine." I go, "No, return it." I mean, I might have been, it's like asking him to give up his firstborn. I mean, to speak up and say, "This isn't okay with me. I need my food that I ordered," and say, "Oh, you must have written it down wrong." Again, whatever it is. But I mean, he was sweating. He was freaking out. But the point is that I was there with him, and I encouraged him, and I gave him language, and we worked it out, and he did it. And when he broke through, it was like, "I didn't die." I go, "Yeah, you didn't die. You didn't
You're
die." Because
safe.
people
It's
feel,
safe.
right? Yeah.
Well, the thing is people, they Yeah, I think they don't feel safe in certain situations. Like he didn't feel safe speaking
Yes,
up for his own interest. So when somebody
that's
gives
right.
him the wrong order, he just accepts it because he doesn't want to deal with like the fear of like what happens if I get into a conversation that becomes an argument that maybe he keeps on thinking everything's going to escalate to like the worst case scenario, and it's avoidance. It's like avoiding that
Yes,
that fear that you're
yes.
going to displease that person or you're going to get into a fight with that person. It's going to be a negative experience, right?
Right, and, many people just go, "Well, I'm just nice. I'm just a nice person." It's like, that's not nice. You're subjugating yourself, you're denying yourself, you don't have sovereignty, you don't have agency. So, people frame it in a way that they can live with it, right? "Oh,
Mhm.
I'm just too nice." It's like, I just care about people." No, you're people pleasing, and let me tell you
People
why.
pleasing. Yeah.
Yeah, but people try to frame it in a way that they can live with the skills that are holding them back because they don't have the support, they don't know what skill they need. They think it's ABC and then it really is D. So it just, maybe they've tried once and it didn't work and so they've given up. But it's about being with a coach or a therapist or a class or reading a book that at its foundation is filled with compassion, love, innocence, so that you feel that safety, like you brought up earlier, Phantom, that feeling that level of safety, so that you can step out. Because if you don't feel safe, you're not going to step out. So it's about feeling safe in some way in order for you to risk, in order for you to
Mhm.
risk, right?
Are a lot of these fears from like childhood, like some bad experience happened when, or is it just build over time?
Well, the wonderful thing about our brain and body is w fear is part of our neurobiology, you're not getting rid of it, and fear, what I call the wheel of fear, is not created because of one experience in your childhood. How many
Mhm.
people come and say to me, "Well, I just have to figure out why I'm like this. I just have to figure out why I'm like this." And they think that if they figure out that event, like you're saying, then they will break free, right? Like,
Mhm.
"Oh, Rhonda, you're afraid of this because your father killed your mother." No, I actually had that fear long before, and I didn't even know I had it because our trigger, our deep fear, our core, what I call the core fear, is unconscious. You don't even know you have it. You've just been so good at avoiding it. But that core fear is handed down through our DNA, perhaps. It is handed down with the way we are raised, our experience. So it's part nature, it's part nurture, but it also, some of our fears are handed down through our DNA. And so by the time we're 5, 7 at most, we're hardwired per se. It's not hardwired literally, but it becomes our modus operandus, our MO, to live a certain way in order to keep ourselves safe. So fear has
Mhm.
only one job and one job only, and it's to keep us safe. And there is a difference between physical fear and emotional fear. And because people are always like, "Well, can't I should have fear." I go, we're gonna have fear. You're gonna have fear. Yeah. But the difference is it a physical fear or emotional fear? I don't particularly like heights, but I don't have to get on the 35th floor of my building, every day, right?
Yeah.
But the emotional fears are all around us all the time.
Yeah, it was like
And
the
so,
wolf's at the door. Like every
yeah,
people get the wolf at the door, and there's no physical wolf at the door, but he's like triggered by like a word or a memory or some kind of deja vu, and then boom, you're in it.
that's right. That's right. Why does somebody get upset when somebody cuts them off and somebody else doesn't? Or why do you feel shut down when somebody gives you a particular look or you feel a certain energy? Again, it's usually very unconscious. So people come to me and they say, "Oh, I know what I'm afraid of." I go, "Oh, great. What are you afraid of?" Right. And most people say some version of, "I'm afraid I'm not good enough." And what I say about that is the generic version, the generalized version of the wheel of fear. So, yes, at the heart of all of our fears is that feeling somewhere that we're not good enough regarding something, right? But then we're going to take that not good enough and actually individualize it. So, my wheel of fear, my core fear is that I'm a loser, right? So, until I discovered this and really understood how it worked, I created a whole life to make sure nobody thought I was a loser. Nobody. Don't want to think I'm a loser, right? So I created a whole world to make sure that wasn't true. People can be afraid of looking stupid or foolish or lazy or, incompetent, right? There's many fears that people can have, and then they create their whole life around it. And the challenge is that thing that that your core fear is actually creates positive connections with people, because people like that you're people pleaser, and people like, right, that you're too nice, and people like,
Yeah,
right,
they
that
can
you
take
work so
advantage.
hard, right.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah, so
well, it's
yeah,
not even taking advantage. You're the one saying, use me.
yeah, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
there's a well, yeah, if you put yourself in that scenario, then you put yourself like to be the doormat, like because you're always offering it. So they say, well, why are you mad now? It's like you always said that you do it. Now you suddenly lash out and say, well, I'm not doing it anymore. It's like, well, you said you wanted to.
Yeah. Well, because of the unconscious, right? We don't even know that we're agreeing to it until we, kind of get, the fed up part, right? And the challenge is that so many people in the beginning blame the other people. You're taking advantage of me. You're taking advantage of me. It's like, no, not no. You set up a like you're saying, you set up the relationship like this. I'm not taking advantage of you. I appreciate that you like to do a lot. That's great. I love that you are afraid to be incompetent, so that you're overly, cautious. That's great for my business. So we have to start taking back our power and start taking back our sovereignty and our agency. And so once I understood what my fear was, then I could see how it so quickly, just so quickly, automatically, without me even being aware of it, started shifting. You started coloring my perceptions, started coloring my actions. I could see, I guess the number one thing I hear from people when they find their wheel of fear and wheel of freedom is, now I know why I did everything I did in life. I know why I got married. I know I got divorced. I know I stayed single. I know I went to college. I know why I didn't go to college. I know why my parents don't talk to me. I know why my parents, right? They kind of see like, it kind of lays the groundwork clear. Like you can see the whole field, right? You can see, it's like you have clarity and you can
Well,
see your whole life.
decodes your mystery. Like you suddenly
That's
get the
right.
key to unlock the stuff that you were kind of locking up. And now you got the password that opens it up. And now you see all the patterns.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And then all of a sudden you are given the tools to actually no longer let that run your life unconsciously. Instead, you can bring it to your conscious level and actually use different tools.
Well, there's like a healthy fear, like of a snake. Like you probably don't want to go up to a
Right. That's our
rattlesnake
survival,
without
right?
any fear. It's like, "Hey, I'm not scared of that." It's like, when are you at the hospital? It's like, there's some things that like, okay, if you're in the box and you're scared to get out of like a toxic workplace because you get a salary every week, and
Yep.
so you're too scared to go and try to go on the job board and get out of it because you don't know what's going to happen if you get out of it. But so
Right. So that,
what
so,
yeah, what you do to get out of it might be more scary than what's in what
but
you're in.
it's the unknown. You don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Right. So the fantasies we create about the future, which is how our wheel of fear responds to creating a new dream. So the neurobiology of how we work is when we have a current problem, the way that we automatically do it is we look, the unconscious looks in the past for a solution, because you're alive, you're breathing. So it's like, I did a good job, you're alive. So something in the past must be able to make this solution happen. So I look in the past, you're automatically looking in the past to try to find some sort of pattern, some sort of model, some sort of something to apply to this current problem, right? The challenge is you're applying it to the current problem thinking you're going to get a different future, right? And that's not usually how that works. So we've got to become conscious, we've got to become aware in order to change that pattern. And that in and of itself is scary, because then once you become aware of your behavior and the things you've said and thought last year, the year before, that fight you had, that job you quit, right? So, so I said earlier, there's physical fears and emotional fears. And physical fear is the snake. Yeah, of course. I want keep up that fear of physical, snake, right? If it stops you from hiking, then deal with it, right? But if you're
Yeah.
not experiencing snakes very often, probably not something you have to manage at this moment. But emotional fears are every day: fear of rejection, fear of looking stupid, fear of failure, fear of success, fear of loss, fear of being incompetent, fear of lazy, fear of, right? So those fears happen throughout our day, even having thoughts. Nobody else is around us. We're having those fears come up without our awareness. So
Yeah.
awareness is key.
Yeah, you just have to have that kind of situational awareness, but sometimes people kind of walk through life and they're not like situationally aware of the, so then they don't understand how to apply the safety and the trigger. They haven't done the work. So if you haven't done the work to figure out what you're triggered by or what is your sense of safety, why do you have it?
Yeah.
what's the source of it? Is it rational? Does it make sense? Is it actually stopping you from progressing? Like
Yes.
I said, it's like if you're fear of snakes and you're a mountain biker and you might never hit the trail,
That's
and
right.
somebody tells you there's a snake on that trail, but you've never seen it. Right?
Yeah.
So you're like, well, if I never see it, I'm still gonna go out there. If I run into it, I'll run into it. But I'm not gonna stop me from doing what I like to do. But if it
That's
stops
right.
you from going on the trail, then you gotta start thinking about like, what's the problem here?
So this is what I believe freedom is, because I equate being fearless with freedom. And, you're either living in fear or you're living in freedom. And freedom to me is the ability to live in uncertainty, to live in the unknown. So if you can take what I call stretch, risk, or dies and step into the unknown on a regular basis, again, with caution, with, support, with all these lovely things in order for you to be able to manage all of that anxiety you might be feeling or that overwhelm, et cetera. But the more that you step out, the more the known becomes, more the unknown becomes known. But more importantly, the unknown doesn't get scary. The unknown is really where life happens. The unknown is where freedom lives. It's the only place where freedom lives. So if you have to know everything, if you have to predict everything, you're actually not free because
Yeah,
your fear is managing that whole event of you having to manage all that. That's all fear based.
yeah,
Doesn't mean you
definitely.
can't, it doesn't mean you can't plan the movers. It doesn't mean you can't get life insurance, right? It doesn't mean those things. But if you have to know every single thing and make sure that it's guaranteed to win before you take a step, then you're not willing to live in the unknown, and freedom lives in the unknown.
Yeah, because the entrepreneurial spirit is you have to be willing to kind of take that risk and like you're not gonna jump off the deep end. You kind of ease into it. It
Yeah.
depends on where you are. If you're doing something no one's ever done, it's kind of like the deep end a little bit because like you have no evidence, you have no numbers to prove that anybody wants this product or wants this service, and you gotta hope that you're gonna startle or amaze people, right? And so you got to figure it out. You got to get people in marketing. If you don't, if you're the science person, engineering person, you know what you don't know. You need a marketing person. It's like I could build the greatest thing in the world, but nobody finds out about it, then it's not going to sell. So it's like you have to figure out like what do you have a rational fear? How can you actually mitigate it? And not 100%. Nothing's ever going to be 100%, but you got to have a certain plan and then have certain willingness to kind of ease out into the unexpected, into the unknown. I'm in software development, and we end up coming up with ideas that were planned, and
Uh-huh.
a lot of the stuff that we didn't plan, like the mad scientist. Oh, this thing we didn't even plan on it, but it actually is better than what we're going to do, and then we
Well,
have to have
app
the courage to actually use it.
well, Apple and Windows is a great example. Okay. So if you're an entrepreneur or want to be an entrepreneur, just think of how the tech industry puts something out in the world, puts the iPhone out, puts Windows out, whatever, and it's filled with bugs. Okay. They're not sitting there trying to solve every single bug because you know what? They know they're going to have thousands of people working on it and solve the bugs for themselves. So when I look at companies, you know, IBM, again, whatever company it is, Xerox, UPS, whatever, there is a certain level of letting go before it's perfected
Yeah,
because they know that the amount of time it's going to take to find all of the flaws or all the bugs is so large. But if you have 1,000 people, 5,000 people, 100,000 people doing it, you're going to find the bugs faster. So it's really inspiring actually because they're not worried about perfection. They're not worried about
yeah.
having everything right. They're just going to put out a product and let all of us find the bugs.
Well, we kind of changed our methodology. In the old days, we had this thing called waterfall, and we had to know everything, and it took longer to do the updates because of the internet and the web. We do iterative agile development, which means we can have a point in time version, like point version one, and then we have version 1.1, 1.2, 1.21, 1.52.
Yeah.
We can continually improve and we
Yes,
don't have to know everything, but we
that's
can
right.
have a baseline and then whatever we didn't know or unexpected things we can address. And so that doesn't stop us. It doesn't put us in a paralysis.
That's right.
We can put something out there on the street, and then as the feedback comes back, we make it better, or we make changes, or we pull it and do something else. but
Yeah.
we are able to move forward. And I've actually tried to apply this kind of agile mindset in my life because it's like,
Yes.
okay, am I going to put
Yes.
this song out or not? Well, I'll put it out
Yeah.
because I can always put a different version out 2 weeks from
That's right.
now if it doesn't work. So I'll put
Yes.
it out and see if law of attraction happens and people like it wherever they are.
That's right. That's right. No, but that's true. I mean, we all have, like I talked about earlier, the essence of us, right? The essence. And I do believe that we all have a destiny. I do believe that we are nudged by our soul. I do believe that we have a life our soul intends, right? I do believe all that. So, if you're getting an urging, a nudging, a clear signal, even though the world says no, that clear signal, whether you want to call it spirit, God, intuition, the divine source, whatever you want to call it, it is asking you to step out, and you're the one to do it. You're the one to do it. And like Ralph Waldo Emerson says, in every genius that we look at, we see our own rejected thoughts, because we see all the times we thought of that idea or thought of an idea like that and went, oh no, it won't work, right? And we give up on ourselves, and then all of a sudden we see somebody else doing it. We're like,
That's
I
why you got to
thought of
throw it at the
that,
wall.
right?
I've
Right?
always had this idea, like throw it at the wall, put it out there because of the internet, because
Hmm.
we're out there now, like you can put all kinds of things out into the world.
That's right.
And it's better to actually try it and get the feedback. And it's because of the vulnerability and the safety. And then like living in fear. Like fear's gotta be your friend, and you gotta learn
That's
to
right.
kinda walk side by side with it and learn how to
That's right.
address it. And it seems like to me, like you've been kind of the epitome of that with your life. I mean, you've been able to move really far and go to a lot of places. So if people are going to say like the top 3 lessons learned from your own experience, what would you relay to people that you've learned over time?
One, there's nothing wrong with you. It's just fear. So the number one tool used that number one of the number one tool you fear uses to keep you stuck, to keep you questioning yourself, to keep you confused, is beating yourself up. So my belief is you never, ever, 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 ever beat yourself up or another human being. You just don't get to do that. You just don't get to. And even though you think that might motivate you, it actually is stealing your energy. It's stealing your purpose. It's stealing your drive. So it's a fake way to think like, oh, fear keeps me motivated. Nah, not really. No, it usually takes you down. It's going to cause burnout. It's not really getting you where you want to go. So number one, there's nothing wrong with you. It's just fear. So you don't get to beat yourself up anymore. Number one. Two, the feeling you are afraid to feel is running your life. So, what feeling have you been avoiding? So, are you feeling that you want to avoid rejection? You want to avoid failure? You want to avoid anxiety? You want to avoid whatever that feeling is? When we're attempting to avoid a feeling, we're literally creating our life by avoiding something, not moving towards something, not moving our intuition, source, God, whatever you want to call it, letting that soul be birthed. No, you're actually creating a world around you that's based on, I don't want to feel this. So if you're not willing to feel all your feelings, by the way, feelings are just energy. That's all they are. Feelings are just energy. So your opportunity to feel all your feelings and not turn away from them. They don't have to, run you. They don't have to own you. They don't have to, do all the things that you're afraid of. But you do have to face them, and you do have to love them, and they love you, right? Fear, everything has a job. Every feeling has a job. Fear loves you, wants to keep you safe. Well, every feeling has a job. So feel the fear that is running your life. If there's a fear you're attempting to avoid, that probably is an area of your life where you're stunted, where you're stuck, where you're not growing. And the third thing I would say is live the life your soul intended. What is your soul leading you towards? What is that destiny that's calling you? And, I always say, God is a tricky guy because he doesn't never necessarily tell you the big dream or the thing that you're going to eventually do. When I was young, when I was in my teens, God, when I was 5, 8, 12, 15, I wanted to be an actress, right? So I finally moved to Los Angeles when I was 24, by the way, when I moved to Los Angeles when I was 24, that's late for acting, by the way. And
Mhm.
I stood frozen for 2 years. I didn't start acting until I was 26. I was frozen. I like didn't go to an audition. I was just frozen. I didn't know what to do. I was so scared. So then when I was like 26, again, really late to be an actress, right? I started slowly going to become an actress. So, here I was becoming an actress. I was getting more and more work. And I thought, oh, my dream is coming true, and people would say, oh, you're such a good actress. And I'd be like, oh, my dream is coming true. And then after I did acting for, gosh, I don't know, 5 or 6 years, I remember this feeling coming over me that maybe it's not acting. And I started really paying attention to how I felt on acting jobs and how I felt when I was in parts. And I started realizing it it wasn't the acting that I loved, it was the acting classes, because the acting classes allowed me to work out all my trauma, work out all my fears, right? Work out all my stuff. So at the age of, I think I was 32, that I quit acting, which, by the way, I'd had that dream since I was a little girl, and giving that dream up felt like I was going to die. Who was I going to be now? That's all I wanted to be. But now, when I was an actress, all I did was go, I want a series, I want a series, I want a series, right? And that's all I did. I want a series, please give me a series. So then I quit acting at 32, by acting. And now think of it, 8 years later, I'm 40 years old, going to London on a book signing. They're creating a whole new genre of television called reality. They're creating a whole new genre, i.e., change lives on reality. And I remember going to that audition, after the audition, realizing that's why I was an actress. God was like, I'm going to have Rhonda help people with fear, but she's going to have to learn to speak. She's going to have to be good on camera. She's going to have to be good here, here, and here. So I'm going to let her use her ego, her fears, and let her become an actress so she can learn those skills. And then I'm going to rip it from her. And she's going to be in no man's land, and she'll eventually find her way. And here are the skills that I learned, 15 years before, that I was using, per se. I was comfortable in front of the camera. I wasn't worried about the camera, right? Because I'd been on TV before. I'd been on movies before. So the camera was no big deal to me. I didn't care. So that made me comfortable, which made me do a great audition, which then I went on to, like I said, have 600 episodes of television. But, there are every single thing you've ever done in your life is getting to where you want to go, is helping you get where you
Yeah.
want to go. So the thing that you thought, like, I gave up that dream when I was 20, trust me, the skills and the tools that you learned in that quest of that dream, whether you fulfilled it or not, are going to be used when you come around to that next big dream. So there is nothing wasted. God doesn't waste anything. Spirit doesn't waste a thing. And you're going to be able to use all your skills and all your tools, whether you think they succeeded or failed, whether you think you abandoned them or not.
I think that's a great place to end with that thought, because it's really important to kind of realize that all your lessons learned, even the things that you thought were failures, are actually just in your toolbox,
That's right.
and you can kind of recall it and use it at any time. And if you can look at your life like that and give yourself some grace and not be beating yourself up and say, hey, I can take that past experience. As a songwriter, we take all the things that happened that were the terrible things,
Yes,
right, and turn it into art. And a lot of
that's right.
artists do that. But like, you can take that thing and use it, right? And once you learn it, like, everything's a resource. Everything's in the toolkit. It's in the toolbox. It's like something it's like a palette. I can grab the
And,
colors and use it.
and I love that, because if you can look at your life like that, then there is no such thing as failure.
Oh yeah, it's just a happy accident. Happy accidents happen all the time when you're an artist. It's like, gotta let it go. Let the muse
That's
come
right.
in and just like
Bring it.
channel
That's
it,
right.
because that's what you do.
That's
But
right.
like,
Bring it.
if people click on fearlessliving.org/risk, what happens when they click on that?
When they click on that, they're going to go to a little page, and it's going to have a place for your name and your email. And it's going to give you access to stretch, risk, and die. So over the last time we've been talking, I talked about taking risks. And I also talked about procrastination. Well, this is my Cure Procrastination course. And I'm going to show you how to take more stretch, risk, and dies in your life so that you can move through fear. And it's 3 15-minute videos, really short. It's got worksheets, it's got examples, it's got everything that you need in order to really figure this out. And it's one of my clients' very, very favorite tools. So you're going to go, you're going to put your email in, your name in, and then you're going to get a welcome email. Make sure you check your junk or your spam, because if it's the first time I've emailed you, that your system might be like, she's junk, she's spam. So, or promotions tab. So make sure you go look and then accept it so that you can get access. And, if you decide you don't want any emails from me, then go and unsubscribe. But, get access to the course, if nothing else, right? So that you can watch those videos and use those worksheets so that you can start taking more risks in order to live the life your soul intended.
And people won't have to remember that because that'll be fully clickable in the podcast description. We were just live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. And in the podcast description for those platforms, you'll be able to click on that. It'll go right there. Every other place that we're going to be published by tomorrow will be the same way. We're on most of the podcast platforms where you can listen to or watch a podcast, and they'll be out there tomorrow. But again, thank you for being on the Family Electric Ghost podcast. Do appreciate you being a guest here.
Thank you. Be fearless.